All right, who wants to do the opening prayer for today?
Said Haley can't get in.
Okay. Pastor got a message that Haley can't get in. So let me see. Hi. All right. So you've started the recording.
Yes. You want me to stop it?
Nope. If you can handle the concern with the code, maybe we're already planning to do that. I don't know. Very good. Who wants to do the opening prayer today? Any takers?
What's the question?
Who wants to do the prayer for the day today? Maybe we should close the door. Maybe the sound is getting over there. Okay, go ahead, Jessica.
Thank you, God, for our daily bread. Thank you for the fruit and everything He has done for us. Amen.
Very good. Thank you. Haley's trying to join us, but there's a problem with the code. So good to see you all. Israel, you're off screen. We need to see you. Vanessa, I don't see you either. I just see a background. So trying to see people. Trying to connect. So first thing, this is really like big. So, I have to move it around maybe. So we had a green one of these last year. So some of you move it over. I moved that really fast, might have made you dizzy. So some of you that were on there before, last year, yes?
Can I see my name?
I will move it up to show yours in just a second, but you can see some of our people that have been here for a while and have lots of stickers. I also just moved Vicky to the new one, even though she was here last year. But there you are, Jessica with your sticker, Faith with your sticker, and I have Vanessa and Israel on there. And then what we've done in the past, because here's some of the people that either finished class or sort of dropped out on us. Some people have delayed their confirmation time for various reasons, but we've kind of made a tradition here that, see, you fill it up all the way, and so when you get confirmed, we give you your whole row of stickers. Even though it's not as important or as fancy as the confirmation certificate, a lot of kids have gotten a kick out of getting their strip with their name, because it's like, yeah, that proves I did it. Because you're gonna do all this all the way through all these commandments. And you have 2 years to do it at your own time, but you'll have a sense of pride that, hey, I did it. I did it. I finished it, right? So, again, we need to do that to get confirmed. If you have any questions about where you're at, it'll be on the chart. And I'm going to take this back to church. Today we're, with Pastor still being on vacation, we are broadcasting from our spare room at home. We have one of those now that Autumn went to college. So, but this will be up, and I can, if you have any questions, I can walk across the room next week and show it to you. And I'll try and remember to get your stickers on there as you earn them, right? Okay, so before we jump in for the day, looking forward, October's coming up. Next Saturday, for those of you that are youth group age, which is 8th grade, we have the kite flying. A bunch of you signed up to do the kite flying, so yay. We'll keep our distance from each other outside, so we should be pretty safe, but your parents already know this. Wear the mask. Bring your own water bottle, please, so you have some water and a snack if you think you're going to need a snack. 2 o'clock. Might still be toasty warm. Yes, ma'am.
Is it only for 8th grade?
8th grade and above. Yes, youth group is 8th grade and above. That's what the youth group voted on for ages. Pardon me?
Is it on October 2nd?
Correct.
Okay.
And it's going to be at church at 2 o'clock.
At 2 o'clock, okay.
Yes, ma'am. So anybody got any Halloween plans, or do you think Halloween's going to be kind of toast because of the virus? Ooh, someone's echoing.
We
Yeah.
don't celebrate
Toast.
Halloween.
You don't celebrate it? Some people don't.
No.
They're concerned because it did have some origins with those old Irish druids that was kind of weird spiritual stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a second commandment thing. The Lutherans took it over. Well, first the Catholics, they took that time over as All Saints Day because the old Irish druids said, oh, it's a time you can reach the spirit world and this and that. So the Catholic Church, before there were any Protestants, they said, well, we'll make this All Saints Day because the first is All Saints Day. It was supposed to be midnight between the 31st and the 1st. You were supposed to be able to reach out to the spirits, those old druids. So the Catholic Church took over and said, let's make this All Saints Day to remember the dead in the right way. And then after a long while, Martin Luther came along and he said, I don't agree with some of the stuff the Catholic Church is doing. And the story goes, we can't prove it for sure, but the story goes that on October 31st, knowing that next day was going to be All Saints Day, he nailed these 95 sentences up on the church door, written in Latin, not German, written in Latin so the other scholarly church people could understand him. And they were he wanted to have a big discussion about, what is all this stuff. Got translated into German and sent all over the country. And that's when we started having other Christian churches in the Western world besides Catholic. There was already the Eastern Orthodox Church going on in the other part of Europe over into Russia and stuff. And into the Middle East and Egypt and stuff. So you may hear something about Reformation. We don't usually celebrate it on the 31st. A few hardcore pastors, usually very young and idealistic, say, let's have a Reformation service right on the 31st. And then they're like, yeah, nobody came because they were out celebrating Halloween. So the last Sunday of October, you'll hear about Reformation. And I know we talk about it in children's messages, bring it up in confirmation, but just to remind you, that's what that's all about. So if you don't like the whole Halloween vibe, you could make it your own holiday by dressing as your favorite ancient or modern Lutheran. Like you could get a beard and dress like Pastor Byers and say he's my favorite Lutheran, or get a wig that's a mop of hair like this and say I'm dressed like my confirmation teacher. I'm kidding, by the way. Or you could dress like Martin Luther or Katie Luther or some of the Lutherans that came. I'm kidding around. I'm saying if you don't want to celebrate Halloween and you want to celebrate it for Reformation, dress as your favorite ancient or modern Lutheran. You could dress as some of the Lutherans that came to America from Germany, or there's actually a big Lutheran church in the Eritrea, Ethiopian area. There's Lutheran churches all across Africa. Kenya has a large Lutheran church. Tanzania, I believe, is where the African Lutheran Seminary is to train pastors in Africa. I don't know of any African Lutheran heroes off the top of my head. I just know mostly kind of Germanic ones. But you could dress like Pastor Ramon or his lovely wife Carmelita and say that's your favorite Lutheran, right? So anyway, a little fun for Halloween and Reformation. So we last week did not get the video from last week posted. I think most of you were here. Pastor's going to work on that this week. You have a chance to do catch up, and then he'll post this week's also. But we started talking about the Trinity last week. So if you missed last week, or you just want to review the Trinity, the last part of last week might be a good thing for you to look at. Yes, Jessica.
Where can we find those videos?
On YouTube, there's an Apostles Lutheran Church channel on YouTube. The confirmation ones are getting broken into 3 parts because something's a little crazy. Loading it off a pastor's phone, it breaks it into 3. But good question.
What do I type in?
What's that?
What do I type in, like?
Apostles Lutheran Church.
Just when you go to YouTube, type in Apostles Lutheran Church, and there might be more than one, but I don't think so. You don't need to have a password or anything, unless you were going to comment on it if you have your own YouTube channel. But otherwise, you don't need to log in or anything, and you can just listen to them. Again, if you missed the first part of last week's class, you may want to look at that to catch up. 9th and 10th commandment stuff. If you want to review the stuff about Trinity, it should be on the last part when he gets that posted. And then we need to let Vicky know, or Vicky's mom, because... What's that?
Is that the link channel?
Hold on a second. What I'm going to do, we're going to take 30 seconds or a little more here. I'm going to do what's called a screen share, all right? Well, actually, first.
Okay.
Let me do something here. It's going to look like I'm staring off in another place because I'm staring at my computer screen, but I'm here with you, okay? I'll show you what to do, guys. Alright, I'm going to do a share screen.
May I open the door?
Yeah. I don't know if this is going to be... No, that's not what I wanted to do. All right. All right. Let's see here. Share screen. Okay, can you guys see YouTube right now?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. This, okay, Apostles Lutheran Church, a few of them pop up. We are the one in Peoria, Arizona, so of course we click that one. All right, okay. All right, and this is our logo right here. And look, here's latest from. See, are you guys able to see it? There's an old lecture of me teaching from Pastor's class. That's the last time, yeah. So that's the last time that I taught from his room. He's got the ones on his phone from when we were up in camp last week, and he has to post those. And it looks like those will be 5. Because the last one from his office was 4. Some of them are out of order, part 2 and 3. They're a little bit out of order. I don't know why that happened, but if you scroll through them, you'll find them. There's 4, part A. I think what we'll ask Pastor to do maybe is start dating them, because we're in this a little ways, and maybe we'll ask him to do the date, confirmation date, and part. And then maybe you can find it a little faster. But you understand what to do there? All right. Moving on. Memory work. So you can use the front part of your catechism, since we're all learning at home and you don't have to haul books. Once you start So once we start meeting live, if you leave your book there at church every week, you can use a pamphlet form. All right, so there we are. We are now moving on in our instruction to the first article of the creed. We did the creed last week. Doing the first article of the creed.
Miss if we have a memory work that we have learned, we could say it after class.
Yes. And any of you who just want some help with the idea of doing memory work can stay after too if you're getting stuck on moving ahead, okay? It looks like Daisy, your mom asked, you just need the 10th commandment. It's kind of a long commandment and the explanation, and then you'll be ready to move into the creed. The creed's a long part, but once you get it, almost everyone says once you get over the hump of doing the creed, it all is much easier from there. Yes, Jessica?
And on the YouTube videos,
Uh-huh.
you're echoing.
Yeah, you're echoing what?
We can't hear her.
So go ahead.
On the YouTube videos, you're the one that says on the confirmation class, or is it like the?
It's an exact recording of this class, only it doesn't have the YouTube part on it. So can hear you guys talking but can't see your faces. So yeah, it's an exact recording of class in case you missed class entirely, or there was something you didn't understand, or you just want to kill an hour and a half for no good reason, or you want to tell your best friend, hey, I like being Lutheran, watch the confirmation channel with me. Any of the above. All right. So we talked a little bit about God, about creeds, talked about finding the creeds in the hymnal, about using the creeds at church every Sunday. So we are now, first article right here. This is page 133, if you all open to page 133. And when we get there, Yosia, would you start us off by reading everything in the box here? It's a bit of reading, but you're a good reader.
What page is it?
It's page 133.
What part am I reading?
Just read the stuff in the box if you would, please.
Okay.
Thanks. You did a great job reading the whole Bible story last week.
Thanks. The first article, part 1. I believe in God the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth. What does this mean? I believe that God has made me and all creatures, that He has given me my body and soul, eyes, ears, and all my members, my reason and all my senses, and still takes care of them. He also gives me clothing and shoes, food and drink, house and home, wife and children, land, animals, and all I have. He richly and daily provides me with all that I need to support this body and life. He defends me against all danger and guards and protects me from all. All this He does only but of brotherly divine goodness and mercy, without any merit or worthiness in me. For all this is my duty to thank and praise, serve and obey Him. This is most certainly true.
Very nice. So the central thought there, no one but God could create heaven and earth. And there's another book that we don't bring out too much. It's called Large Catechism. That's what the LC Roman numeral 2 is. There's a guide in the back here that tells you about all of those other abbreviations that they use. There are other books that Lutherans use, but they're not in the catechism per se. So that's called the Large Catechism, and the Large Catechism is a book used a lot more by pastors and sometimes by teachers than it is by just people like us wanting to learn and understand. So, there's that. But moving on to what it talks about the story of creation, which is recorded in both Genesis chapter 1 and Genesis chapter 2 in slightly different ways. We'll talk about that in a little bit. We are on page 133. And so, Miss Daisy, are you on page 133 with us? Would you read what it says here by the maroon cross where it says, as Christians?
As Christians, we confess,
I am God's creature. Doesn't mean a creature like creature from the Black Lagoon or a Halloween creature. The word creature is related to creation. It's something that was created. And I mentioned this briefly last week, but Martin Luther was quite a nature lover. If you get into some of his sermons and things he just randomly said when he was sitting at the table with people, he often used nature as an example for us to learn spiritual lessons, because the Bible does that itself. When Luther wrote that line that Josiah read for it, he didn't just, when you back translate what he says in German to English more literally, it says, I believe that God has made me together with all creatures, not just I believe God has made me and. I think that together with implies a stronger connection. It's not like somehow there's this great separation. Now there is some separation between us and the rest of nature because of sin, and we're the ones that sinned. Creation didn't sin, but they got dragged down into this mess because of sin. And you can find that in Romans chapter 8, and we may look at that in a little bit too. And actually Romans chapter 8, that is referred to here in your catechism. But we're going to look at that whole idea of creation and nature, and I said if you like that sort of thing, this week may be the week for you. We may also talk a little bit about evolution and stuff like that too. Anybody learning stuff about evolution in school? About where it started with a guy named Charles Darwin. Actually, way back in ancient times, a Greek guy named Aristotle first put those ideas out there. So when we talk about creating everything, there's quite a long section here in our book. So why do you think, it says, I believe in God the Father. What are some reasons, and we're now flipping over to page 134, why would we call God our Father?
Because he's the one that created us and gave us life.
Absolutely. That's the first big reason, absolutely. And secondly, he's the Father of Jesus, our Savior, who's called the Son. So absolutely. There are many, many verses there, including like Acts 17, which is number 327, that talks about in him we all live and move and have our being. Even people that don't believe in God or don't know him, he's still their Father in that sense because he created all people.
Miss Byers, what is the answer to that?
He's our Father. What Josiah said, he's our Father because he made all of us. And secondly, because he's the Father of our Savior, Jesus. So, why does the Creed confess God as maker of heaven and earth? Faith, can I get you to read verse 328 here towards the bottom of page 324? Yes, Genesis 1:1.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth.
There you go. Anybody remember from Sunday school stories or from reading somewhere else how the creation story happened? Well, in Genesis chapter 1, it's laid out in an orderly day-by-day thing. Day 1, God created light. It was like not until day 4 that he created the sun. So that's why there are people that try and merge evolution with creation. It doesn't really work too well for reasons like that. Day 6, he created humanity. Somewhere in those first 6 days, he created the angels. He doesn't really tell us when, but he did. But since they're part of creation, they were created in those 6 days. Day 7, he rested. The other week when we were talking about the third commandment, we talked about how 7 and rest and the word Sabbath are all related in Hebrew, because the seventh day was a day of rest, and it was a day that the ancient Hebrews worshipped on. So, and then chapter 2, and this is why some people that want to criticize the Bible say, oh, well, it can't be real because Genesis 1 is different than Genesis 2. Well, first of all, in Genesis chapter 1, God uses his more impersonal name, God. In Hebrew, it's Elohim. The other week, we talked about God's more personal name, Yahweh, which means he is, he causes to be. In Genesis chapter 2, if you read it in English, it'll say the Lord or Yahweh. And there, it doesn't go orderly day by day. It goes in order of importance. So it highlights the creation of humans. Although it does say that animals were also formed out of dust. God did take some care and trouble in fashioning the animals, which were made on the same day as people.
Haley should be coming online.
But God did not breathe his spirit of life into other animals. He only breathed it into human beings. So that's Genesis 1 and 2. So on the one hand, it shows that God was very careful. I had a science teacher, an evolutionist once, very hardcore evolutionist, who tried to say, well, why is there so much stuff that looks similar between this species and that if God just sort of sloppily said, let it be? And I'm like, God didn't just sloppily say, let it be. And it was funny because I was even wavering in my faith then. I was an agnostic my last few years of high school. But even then, I knew she wasn't being fair to what was in the account of Genesis. So Genesis 1, Genesis 2, they tell the story a little differently. Question 116, it talks about the catechism, God, what does it say? God made me and all creatures. And I said again, the way Luther wrote it, he said, me together with all creatures. So Jessica, we're on page 135 now. Would you read verse 333 for us right there? The guy's name is Nehemiah. We don't hear a lot about Nehemiah, but there he is.
It says, you are the Lord, you alone, you have made heaven, the heaven of heavens with all their hosts, the earth and all that is on it, the seas and all that is in them, and you preserve all of them, and the host of heaven worships you.
There you go. Thanks. Next page over under question 18, what does it mean to confess that God made me and all creatures? And it talks about this. Every person, regardless of age, sex, race, and ethnicity, receives life from God just as I do. It's kind of an important thing to hear because our country right now is tussling a lot about ethnic issues. I prefer the term ethnic over race because honestly there's one human race. But we can't deny that there's ethnicities, both because of our outward appearance and because of how culture is treating it right now. It's kind of highlighting it. So, Vanessa, are you willing to read verse 336 there on page 136? Verse 336, and it's from Acts 17. Determined
allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place, that they should seek God and perhaps feel their way towards Him and find Him.
Yes. Okay. Out of one man, one human being, Adam and Eve. Now we believe in creation, but even those people that believe in evolution, you know, here's the thing. When you guys get on towards talking in science a little bit more, you'll learn something about genetics and what they call dominant and recessive traits. And although we're all one human race, we sometimes have different outer appearances. My ancestors came from Germany, maybe some Jews in there too. We're still trying to figure that out. But as far as we know, they all came from Germany. The upper parts of Europe, people tend to be light-skinned. Many, but not all, have blue eyes. They tend to have somewhat lighter, straighter hair, but not all. My hair is a little on the wavy side. You go down through southern Europe, and people have darker skin. And you go to the Middle East, and they have somewhat darker skin. You go to Africa, and people from Africa look a lot like this lady, or sometimes even darker. Many of the people we call black here in the United States also have Caucasians or white people in their ancestry. But we're all one human race because we can all intermarry and have children. But the interesting thing is the outward appearance. What makes people appear black or of African origin to us are...
Can I use the bathroom?
Yes. They're largely what we call dominant traits. So it's quite likely, almost certain, that Adam or Eve or both of them looked black, or what we would call biracial. The old Sunday school lessons make Adam and Eve look like they were Caucasians from Northern Europe. They probably didn't look like that at all, because if we all came from one set of first parents, they had to have the genetics in them that make them look more African or more what we would call black, or they couldn't have passed it on to their descendants. Same thing would have to be true of Noah or Noah's wife or both of them, and of their son Ham, who was the ancestor of the race or the peoples of Africa. So sometimes people talk about race, but the reason I prefer to talk about one human race is that we all have 46 chromosomes, except if something a little unfortunate happens when a baby's made. We pretty much all have 46 chromosomes. We can intermarry, we can have babies, those babies can have babies. We all came from Adam and Eve in the beginning, but culture and different outward appearances, which God kind of adapted in that so that people could survive. And I'll get to in just a second, Jessica. Before we had air conditioning and modern housing and everything else, because a lot of people from Europe moved down to Australia, where it's close to the sun and the equator, and they got lots and lots of skin cancer. So having this look of this lady who some of her ancestors were probably from Africa, to survive in Africa, it's safer that way to have darker skin. The peoples who first settled in Australia tended to look that way. It's safer, it protects them. The thick hair protects you from the sun beating down and causing cancer on your scalp. My ancestors needed to be lighter because up in Northern Europe, before you could go buy a bottle of vitamins, vitamin D is something that animals make, but we people can't make. You need it so you can absorb calcium and your bones don't get all soft. So my ancestors' skin needed to be lighter so they could absorb more of the sun. There was less of it, and they needed some sun to make vitamin D.